Noodles. We got to start with Canadian women's hockey against the United States. And I guess I was kind of hoping that it would be a little bit different than what we saw in that rivalry series. But the Americans just look like way too much to handle yesterday, didn't they?
They do. They look faster. They look a little bit deeper in their roster. And, when it's unfortunate because I think in our minds, it's always been, Canada, the women's, Canadian team always found a way to get it done, regardless of where they were at. But the U.S. program, I was saying this yesterday, the U.S. program is caught up on a lot of different, factors. And if you take a look at it, the men's U.S. team they scare me for Team Canada. I'll be honest. They scare me because I think they're deeper. I think their D are better. I think their goaltending on paper is better. So, do I think Canadian forwards are still better? Absolutely. But I don't know what the margin is. If you've got two separators in McKinnon and McDavid, and outside of that, the U.S. can match them on all different levels. But disappointing for the women's Canadian team. But the injury to Poulin, let's see if they can, she can come back and hopefully help them to push back.
Noodles, when it comes to the Canadian men and the goaltending, I did issue a poll out on Twitter yesterday saying, who would you start in net to the voters? And Thompson capturing it with 79.4% of the vote, Binnington getting 11, and Kemper 9.6. I think we all kind of assume it'll be Binnington's, giving the Four Nations and how Cooper kind of deploys these things. But where would you go and how short of a leash would Binnington have if he is starting game one?
It's Binnington with a very short leash because you're right. Logan Thompson is there. I think Darcy Kemper, we forget that he won a Stanley Cup and has performed under high pressure. Yes, we saw him against the Edmonton Oilers in the playoffs, but keep in mind it's different competition, different players in front of him. Jordan Binnington gets the nod for me just because of what he did in the Four Nations face-off last year. This year, he's statistically been one of the worst goaltenders in the league, and it's hard not to look past that, to be honest. So I think he gets the start, but I think it's a short leash. And I actually think Thompson will play the second game regardless. But if they happen to lose to Czechia and Binnington doesn't look good, to me, I think they make a switch right away. Because I think that's the position where you can't really mess around on. If McDavid or Crosby or McKinnon has an off game, that they're coming back with a smoker. Binnington, to me, it's weird. This guy's won a Game 7 on the road in the Stanley Cup final, and he won an overtime game in the Four Nations faceoff. And if he doesn't have the shortest leash, I don't know who does in that tournament. It's unfortunate, but he hasn't had a great season to the point where Joel Hofer on his own team is outplaying him. So he needs a good tournament. He needs a good start. He needs a good start tomorrow, and then maybe that'll calm everybody down. But at the end of the day, when you're looking at it on paper, Canada is not number one. Most other countries have goaltenders that we would argue are better on paper. That being said, you got to go out and prove it. So we'll see what he has.
There will be a big difference going from playing behind the St. Louis Blues this year to Team Canada. But how much of that position is about what you do and how much of it is about the team in front of you?
A little bit of both. Obviously, the team in front of you, how they defend, how they allow shots is a lot different. And, depending on if it's a 2-on-1 situation, how the defenseman wants to play it, if he's aggressive, if he plays off. I'll give you an example. Chris Pronger and Al McInnes, when I played with them late 90s, we'll call it, they like to be aggressive on 2-on-1s. So they would pressure the shooter because they would say, like, we're not going to leave the shooter to you. We're going to force the shooter into a bad position. And if they make a great pass, you got to push to get across. Like there were different thought processes playing 2-on-1s, playing all different scenarios. So I don't think it'll be any different for Binnington or whoever's in net. But his team wasn't very good this year, but he wasn't as well. He's going to need to adjust very quickly. And also keep in mind, you have to gain the trust of your team and the coaching staff while doing it. So it is going to be a challenge for him, but let's see if he's up for the challenge. One thing that I've noticed with him is when he's pressed, he's able to respond. So we'll see if he responds.
Noodles, you mentioned, and you kind of laid out the reasons. The blue line is on paper, I think, better than the Canadian blue line, and then obviously the goaltending. But how worried are you about the United States? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, do they scare you? Like, are you at like an 8? Like very concerned about them? Yeah.
I am. I'm sorry. I might be a 9.
Oh boy.
Just because, keep in mind, it was an overtime game in the Four Nations face-off. They didn't have Quinn Hughes on the ice. Like, he wasn't available to them.
And Binnington had to make some incredible saves if that thing was over.
Incredible saves. Yeah. So, the margin for error is so thin. And I would argue, obviously, I think the 3 best players in the tournament are Canadian. And that's McDavid, McKinnon, and McCarr. But then outside of that, I would argue, you look at that defense for Canada, good players. But when they throw over the boards, Hughes, Werenski, Sanderson, those would be my 3 after McCarr. Yeah, and, I like Parayko, he's St. Albert boy, all of that. But, I mean, he's older, he's longer, he's not a burner. Drew Doughty, if Drew Doughty was 27, not a problem. But he's not. He's 37. I think, or 35. I don't want to, age him, but he's older, and he's not a burner. That's the one thing that I've noticed. Like, if you look at it, the USA team are not burners, but they're big. Tage Thompson is a hell of a player. He's lost in all of this. There, you've got Eichel, you got Jack Hughes, you got Austin Matthews, you got the Tkachuk brothers. Not all of them are blazing speed. I think, Jack Hughes is, but they are big. They're physical, and their D can skate. That's the one thing. And listening to John Cooper talk about having, strength down the middle of the ice because he doesn't see having to play somebody 24 minutes. In the NHL, McDavid and those guys can play 24 minutes, McKinnon. But because the Four Nations was such a high pace, he felt like 16 to 18 minutes was enough for everybody because the pace was so high and they had to have quick turnover. So that's why he was thinking, let's use our strength down the middle because we're going to really need 3 or 4 lines. I look at the U.S. Yes, their forwards on paper aren't as deep as Canada, but I think they're more diverse. What I mean is they bring a little bit different. Yeah. And then the D scares me because as much as I love Shea Theodore, I think he's the number 2 defenseman on Team Canada because he's a great skater. Outside of that, everyone else can play to their strength. I think Josh Morrissey's a really good player, Slavin, guys like that. But I don't think they stack up as well on paper against the U.S., and that concerns me.
Well, I got to say, Noodles, you kind of got me a little bit more worried now this morning, too. Jeez, man, come on.
Okay, I'm going to change it. I'm a 2. I'm not worried. I'm not worried at all.
Hey, we were talking about the format of the event, and it'll be 10 minutes of 3-on-3 and a shootout in quarterfinals and semifinals. And then the gold medal game will actually go to 3-on-3 overtime. What do you think about the 3-on-3 overtime to decide a gold medal?
I've always hated it. I mean, the NHL, I can understand it in the NHL. I love 3-on-3 in the NHL in regular season because they can pretty much get it done. I think the stats are 70%. They could score in the first 5 minutes. But, I always feel like it's a skills competition and it's really not in the spirit of the game. So you're going to have, if you go to a gold medal 3-on-3 final, it's, you get a 2-on-1, you miss the net, they go back the other way. Like, to me, that it's not structurally the way they play the game, but everybody has to play it, and I guess I'm on board with it. But I'm somebody who's a little bit more critical of Olympic hockey because I get frustrated. I think the reffing stinks. I think some of the rules stink, and so when you look at it through an NHL lens, you get frustrated because, a big hit is all of a sudden, hey, we got to suspend this guy, or, he touched his head, or, there's all these things. And I get frustrated because I think the NHL refs, regardless of how much people criticize them, I think they're the best. And you get some guy from Denmark or something with a camera on his helmet skating around out there, and I just don't think he has a feel for the game compared to the NHL game. So I'm sorry. I'm trying to prepare myself to watch awful reffing and be frustrated with it, because I'm very pro NHL refs. I travel with those guys quite a bit. I know they have a very hard job, and people get on them every night, but I think they do a really good job for the most part. And then when I get to international refereeing, I think it's just another level of awful. I'm sorry, but
You don't know what you have. You don't know what you have until it's gone. Yeah, that type of thing.
Yeah, that's true. People are going to be dying to get back to the NHL officiating. I laid out my 5 guys for a shootout if it came to that for Canada today. Who would be your 5 guys? Have you thought about this? A spot in the gold medal game is on the line. Who are the 5 guys you're rolling out there?
Okay, so McDavid and McKinnon get the call for sure right away. I think Mitch Marner gets the call. Extremely creative. Extremely creative. Brad Marchand and Sidney Crosby. And the reason why I went with Marchand is the moment never gets to him. I think he's a guy that embraces pressure. So keep in mind, that's, there's going to be pressure, and if you need a shootout, he's skilled enough to make a move, but he's not going to be overwhelmed that he's going to choke in that situation. That's what I've always felt about Marchand. Seems to be a pretty clutch player and doesn't get overwhelmed by the pressure. And I think Mitch Marner is very, very talented, and in that situation, pressure would be something. He's going to have to prove it, because he hasn't had, historically great playoffs playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs, but he is a guy that, keep in mind, that's a primary assist in the Four Nations for McDavid. That's so different stage and very talented, and obviously the other 3 speak for itself, the generational best players.
We're gonna get a look here. Finland plays at 8:40 today against Slovakia. We're gonna look at this slightly smaller rink. As a goaltender, I'm curious. As a goaltender, if it's a little bit smaller, I don't know if that means things are gonna be coming at you a little bit quicker because of the way it's gonna. Is that who's gonna be most impacted by the slight adjustment that's gonna have to be made? I guess.
Well, I think everybody, because their decision-making might have to be even quicker, if that makes sense, because the game is so fast. But the goaltenders have to be mindful. I'll give you an example. Nowadays, every rink is a cookie cutter, right? You go in, whether it's Colorado or you go into, name a rink. You go into LA, you skate out there. The fans are different, the jerseys and all that, but for the most part, it's a cookie cutter, and you just feel like the dimensions of the rink. It used to be, you go into the old Chicago Stadium. You go into the Odd in Buffalo. In Buffalo, I think I've told you guys this. Ron Hextall, I started there. Ron Hextall, my goalie partner, says to me, he goes, in the second period, be aware, because on your blocker side, the trainer likes to kick the gate and the puck will come flying out to the slot. And I'm like, what? And on any dump in, there was a trainer back there that would kick the gate, and the gate would pop the puck to the slot. It was a known thing, to the point where the league had to step in. So every rink back then, the Boston Garden felt like you were playing in a shoebox. There was no corners. So everything cross-corner dump came right to the middle of the ice. So there is some slight adjustments. I think for a goaltender nowadays, you come into Edmonton, very lively boards, right? Straight off the board, straight out to the front of the net. Those are the adjustments that you have to make. And if that, couple feet or whatever it is that we're going to be missing, if that's in the corners or if that's in the end zone behind the net, the goalies are going to have to be mindful of it, put it that way. So I think that's the biggest challenge for the goalies, is the adjustment. If everything's going to be faster, or if the dimensions, you got to make sure and get to your position very quickly. So everyone's going to be impacted, but as always, the goalies are all eyes are on them, because they have the most pressure on them.
Noodles, as always, buddy, great stuff. And I guess next Wednesday we'll be setting up quarterfinal action for the men's Olympics. So that'll be fun. We'll talk to you then, man.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. And like I say, I believe in, Canada's playing, they've got a little bit of a cakewalk here. And as all the teams, they're playing, lesser countries in hockey, we'll call it. And then, that's when the fun gets going pretty much next week.
Let me ask you one more. I want to go back to, did you see the Norwegian guy who finished third in biathlon, then asked for forgiveness because he cheated on his girlfriend on national television? Do you think it
I
works?
did.
Do you think the plea works in that situation, or was it a waste of time?
I think what he did is he took his last swing and got busted. He's like, listen, I want you back. And no better way to do it is on the biggest platform. Now, we were talking about yesterday on our show, didn't seem that heartbroken about, getting caught or whatever, cheating or losing her, because he still medaled. Like, I could understand if he was in last place and looked very lethargic. He looked like Rocky running on the beach, when before Apollo started yelling at him. To me, if you're lost and you're in the clouds, well, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Well, I need my girl back. He goes and medals, and now he's on top of the world and goes, oh, by the way, I want her back. So I don't know. I wasn't disingenuous, but I thought this guy had a set of stones on him. I'll say that.
We'll see how it plays out. I want the follow-up story for sure.
Yeah,
There's
we need the follow-up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we all need the follow-up. We need her to go public and say, sorry, sorry, loser, you're done, or I'm taking you back, and she comes running to him at the airport.
Yeah, like that. Yes, that's exactly what we need. Good stuff, Noodles. We'll chat next week.
You bet. Take care, guys.
Maybe we have the update by next week.
No, I
Who
bet.
knows? I mean,
I'd
she
hope.
probably knows what's up right now.